Hello, my name is Jeriah Mack.
And my name is Chris Keck, and this is a documentary on the influences from the Renaissance time period to the modern society.
The Renaissance was a time period where religion, music, technology, art, architecture, literature, and science were very important to the society.
Religion had the biggest influence on the modern society. Music comes in closest to the least important subject of the Renaissance.
Renaissance religious areas was yet the biggest part during the time period, but also had the biggest innovation on modern society.
Renaissance religion. During the Renaissance time period, there were a lot of priests and popes that were teaching what they believed was the right way for people to live their lives, and not following what was written in the Bible. As these priests and popes were teaching what they believed was right for the people to live their lives, there were very few Protestant reformers that came along. One of those reformers was Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a German theologian, professor, pastor, and church reformer. Born November 10, 1483, and died February 18, 1546, Martin Luther created the 95 Theses and mounted them on the door of the church. He wrote the 95 Theses because he believed that people could find salvation through faith and grace only. He didn't want to participate in the selling of indulgences. The 95 Theses are a list of questions to argue with the church and their decisions to sell the indulgences. His main purpose for writing the 95 Theses was to show the church that he believed God intended believers to seek repentance and faith alone, not deeds that lead to salvation. He also criticized the people who accepted the indulgences. Another Protestant reformer there was is Henry VIII. Henry VIII was born January 28, 1546, and died January 28, 1546. He was a king of England, and believe it or not, he had 6 wives. He had 3 children. One of them was a Catholic, and the other 2 were Protestant. His children's names were Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward. When King Henry VIII went against the church, he was labeled the defender of faith. King Henry VIII was labeled this because he wasn't satisfied with the wife he had and because she couldn't bear any male children, so he wanted a divorce. The Pope wouldn't give him permission for a divorce, so he remarried and remarried 4 times after that. Once he reached his 6th wife, he died. After he was labeled defender of faith, he received all church and land and wealth in England. An interview on art and architecture.
Architecture and art affected modern society.
Architecture and art have affected modern society in endless ways. They dictate what's popular, they dictate success, strength. Art is a main player in all of society's choices.
What was very common during the Renaissance that is common in our society now?
There was a huge push for realism in the Renaissance. And one of the things that came from that is perspective. And perspective and the use of perspective is still being used. The perspective that was developed during the Renaissance is still being used.
How has art changed from the Renaissance to our modern society?
We're not super focused on absolute realism anymore. It doesn't have to look exactly like a photograph. It can be altered and still be accepted.
How has architecture changed from the Renaissance to our modern society?
Well, with the birth of like Frank Lloyd Wright, and there's been a lot of great architects that do things different from the traditional style of that.
Dance to the music of the Renaissance.
Throughout the Renaissance, instrumental dance music flowered and thrived and was composed, or more likely improvised, by many people. Musicians whose names have come down to us collected much of this existing music and had it published in various volumes over the years. The Terpsichore of Michael P. and the dance music of Tielemann S. represents some of the outstanding examples of dance music from the late Renaissance. A piece such as La Spagna is an excellent example of the buoyant rhythms and sounds of the Renaissance dance. Many of the dance forms were modified and developed by later composers and found their way into the Baroque dance suite. Flemish composers of the time often based the cantus firmus on a popular melody of the day, composing new music for the other voices in counterpoint to the tune.
The invention of the microscope and the telescope. An important advance in the science world came from the development of convex and concave lenses. They were first used as vision correctors in about 1280 Florence, Italy. These spectacles can be seen in paintings of Pope Leo X, who was often depicted wearing concave lenses to correct his problem of myopia. From the development of these lenses came the development of the microscope and the telescope. Using the idea of the microscope to guide him, Hans Lippershey of Middelburg decided to invent the telescope in 1608. Lippershey thought that if a microscope could enlarge images too small for the naked eye to see, there must be a way to enlarge objects too distant for which to get a good view. He accomplished this by combining two lenses and a tube in a different way than previously used in the microscope. By using convex and concave lenses, he was able to magnify stars and planets. Like the microscope, the telescope was fitted in Holland and bent light to view a desired image. Galileo Galilei used the telescope to develop his theories and ideas about Earth and its relation to the stars and the rest of the universe.
Thank you for tuning in and watching our documentary on the innovations from the Renaissance time period that have affected modern society today. Chris, this is for you. My throat hurts. Love you, buddy.